Hey, this is Terry Allen with OXEN Technology. Today I want to talk to you about cloud backup. Specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit around Microsoft 365, but this certainly applies to any cloud service provider or cloud software as a service provider. Most of us believe that our data is protected by the cloud service provider, or we think that that they're going to have mechanisms up in the cloud that are going to help protect our data. And to a certain extent, that's true. SaaS apps do have very limited built-in protection, but there's still a lot of room for acts of human nature. So for example, many services have recycle bins or recoverable item folders or other temporary holding buckets, but all of that is time limited in their retention. So while they can help get our data back, they're really not designed to protect our data in the way that we're talking about when we talk about data backups. So, in many cases, relying on the limited built-in protection that the clouds can offer, the recovery process can be very slow. In one example, I saw that it can take up to 30 days, depending on the data that you're trying to restore. That's a long time when you're trying to get back to business, or you're trying to get access to data that you need to get back to business. So these limited recovery mechanisms that the cloud does provide doesn't necessarily provide 100% reliability of recovery. So for example, Microsoft will tell you, they spell it out, there is no guarantee that they can recover all or any of the files. And if they can, it may take, quote, some time. Well, I don't know about you, that's not very comforting. So reading from the Microsoft Services Agreement, it says, we, Microsoft, recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on the services or store using third-party apps and services. So essentially what Microsoft is not saying here is that they're not the data owner. Data owners are people who are ultimately responsible for data, and Microsoft is pretty clearly saying here they're not the data owner. That is not their job. So let's talk about a few things here that I think really speak to the risks of data in the cloud and why we need to back it up more than what the cloud service provider's limited built-in protection is. So for example, saving over production data. Now we've got version history. Like if I go in and I overwrite a Word file, okay, I'm probably going to be able to go back to the previous version if I need to restore to an earlier copy of a document. But those earlier copies, that version history itself is also time limited, right? So depending on my circumstance, I could be opening myself up to losing production data if I accidentally save over something and I don't realize it for a long period of time. We also have the risk of ransomware. And this is the encryption of data by malicious software. So while ransomware is not a significant likelihood at this point, based on my research, the risk is very real. We also have the risk of canceled subscriptions, canceled Office 365 subscriptions, or deactivated user accounts. So, when you cancel a subscription or you deactivate a user account, that data does go into kind of a temporary holding place where it can be recovered. But even again, that holding place is time limited. So, if you come back later on and you say, oh, we need to restore, the accounts receivable, whatever, finance clerk's mailbox, that data may not be there right after a certain period of time. So again, it opens up these windows where data ends up purging off and we end up with potential permanent data loss. We also have the real risk of rogue employees, just deleting large data sets that, maybe they're covering illegal activity, in a worst case scenario. Or maybe it's just pure error. A couple of wrong clicks and I deleted some folders that were really important. Or maybe you've got a rogue employee that's deleting data just to retaliate against the company. And interestingly, another reason I found was, this was reportedly the 5th most popular cause of data loss in the cloud that resulted from third-party app integrations. And so, this is a thing where you can connect other applications to your 365 cloud. And apparently it's a huge cause for data loss and data being overwritten. So anyway, just some things to think about as we think about cloud backup and some of the gaps that exist there. Statistically, Microsoft, citing other studies, suggests that 3/4 of an organization's intellectual property is contained within the email and messaging systems. And so that's a pretty big deal. We've got a huge repository of data here, and it's got limited data protection, and it's of high value. So I would encourage you to kind of rethink that. And if you've got some questions about how to protect your cloud data, reach out to me, reach out to your OXEN representative. We can help talk about some solutions for that. Okay, we'll leave it at that. And for now, I'm Terry, your shared CIO with OXEN Technology.